everybody. Hello, hello. Just as people continue to trickle in here, I thought we could just ease in and get started. It's so good to see you all. For those of you that don't know me or that I don't know you, my name is Katie Conkin, and I'm the Director of Development and Communications here at First United. And we're so happy to have you joining us for Toast Talks here today. It's the first one of 2024. And we're incredibly excited to be going through our annual report highlights. Has anybody received their annual report in the mail yet?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. So many hands up.
Yes.
Amazing. Fantastic. So we're going to be, like I said, going through some highlights and our impact, expanding a little bit more on what we wrote about there, and tell you a little bit about what you folks all made possible. And just to get us started, I want to invite Lauren Sanders, who's our Indigenous Spiritual Care Chaplain, to lead us in a land acknowledgement.
Bonjour, Lauren Nadijnikas, Oteke Musqueam, Squamish, Aquameo, Slawatus, Ejedian. I just said hello. My name is Lauren, and I live on these lands that are Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. So, so if you are from Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh lands, feel free to raise your hands in gratitude and plant your feet with knowledge that the peoples who had been here from time immemorial continue to steward these lands that are unceded and stolen. If you are not from this area, feel free to we have a chat function, right, Katie?
Sure
Yeah,
do.
put your lands and your Indigenous communities in the chat, and we welcome everyone. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I hope some folks can pop into the chat box if they're on other folks' lands. Whose land you're on? Where are you dialing in from today? Thanks, Lauren. And I'd love to open us up now with hearing from our board chair, Heather Clarke. Heather's going to get us started. I'll pass it over to you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. And welcome, everybody. And thank you so much for attending this Toast Talk. And your support is just so meaningful to all of us. So I think you're in for a good ride on this Toast Talks. I'm going to highlight a couple of things that are consistent with the annual report. You will receive the annual report and you can read that at your leisure. But I thought I would just take this opportunity to bring you some board perspectives and how those are nicely meshed with the whole organization and the work that we've been doing. So annually, the directors are requested to do a self-assessment. And the self-assessment includes assessing how the board as a whole is working, how the committees are working, how the individual director feels about their role as a director and also on, because we all have commitments for at least one committee. And then I asked them, or we asked them, the governance committee is responsible for this, asked them to identify some accomplishments that they thought the organization had made during this past year. And also, what were some of the challenges that were left that we need to deal with? So I'm just going to highlight some of those. So the accomplishments, as you can imagine, one of the top ones was the construction and that we've broken ground. And we were so grateful for Elder Shane Point for providing a copper plate ceremony before the ground was ready to start construction, but before that, so that it was started in a good way. So that was sort of top of the accomplishments. The other significant accomplishment was the work done on social justice that the staff has been doing. And you no doubt know that one of the major accomplishments there in the social justice and advocacy was the eviction mapping project and going forward with some recommendations for changes in the law. Another major accomplishment was that we hired a new ED, and we're just so pleased with that and the stability of the leadership team and all the staff. But so that was another major accomplishment that was noted. Also, the financial work that has gone into to redevelopment. We still have a ways to go because you'll see it as a challenge. And that we also, an accomplishment, it's not finished, but is strategic planning. So you will note in your annual report when you get it, if you don't have it yet, that we've had 2 sessions on strategic planning. We have one more, and in that strategic planning, 3 powerful actions to guide the work of FIRST were identified. Dignity, belonging, and justice. And I see behind the screen there with our new ED, well, she's not so new anymore, but there we've got it. And maybe some of you have seen the big billboards that have been up around town with just those words on it. And they're quite impressive. So, and very eye-catching. Also noted in the annual report was the first social justice efforts, and not just the eviction mapping project and recommendations for changes in the law, but the social justice takes many forms, including the Oppenheimer Park decampment, being there, witnessing it, offering warm clothing to those leaving and others who live on the street or lack appropriate shelter, advocating for changes in policy based on evidence. So the social justice takes many forms, but these were some of the outstanding ones that, from my perspective and that of the board, I think were outstanding. And redevelopment at the Gore and Hastings property, that's noted in the report. And I don't know whether there's any photos, I can't remember, of the copper plate ceremony. I don't think so, but I think it's been on the FIRST website. And lastly, as noted in the annual report, and also as one of the accomplishments by the board, was your incredible generosity and the generosity of many people who have made it possible, not only for redevelopment of the property, but also to keep the organization functioning and meeting the needs of the downtown east side. So what are we left? Oh, so I should just say that the generosity is individuals as well as communities of faith. We've had great support from them and generosity from foundations, from corporations, and from all levels of government. So very supportive and generous. Okay, so the challenges, where are we left now and what are we going to work on as we go forward? course, it's first forward, so we got to go forward with this at first. And one of the challenges that this is what the directors have identified, is they really want to understand better the needs of our beneficiaries. So we've had a couple of opportunities that the directors had to help out with the food truck, to visit each of the locations in which our facilities are in a transition mode while we wait for the new building. And they want increased relationships with the owners. And the owners are really our donors, our churches, and to deepen those relationships and see where we can deepen understanding and improve those relationships. Another big challenge that we need to work on, not just the board, but the whole organization, is to continue reconciliation and decolonization efforts in all that we do. Here's an opening for you. Another challenge is recruiting directors. So we have opening for a few, and we'd be just glad to hear from anybody who has an interest in being on the board. And I think very shortly, if it hasn't happened yet, there will be a part of the website that will encourage people, if they have any interest in being on the board, to express their interest, and we will follow up with them. Let me see. Recruiting, capital campaign goals. We still have to achieve those, as you know, and have seen in the annual report, or I'm sure that we'll hear more about that. We've reached some remarkable goals, but we still have ways to go. Strategic planning is still a challenge because we haven't completed it yet. And then, of course, from strategic planning comes action plans. So we're on our way, but the challenge is still to keep that momentum going. And everybody is pleased. I think directors and staff are really pleased with the way it's going, but we still have a ways to go. Ensuring sustainability. There was some suggestion that perhaps when we get the capital campaign done, that we should start thinking about legacy funds and endowments so that we've got an income coming in. And to continue guiding our advocacy work. So those are some of the challenges that the directors identified. And as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. I'm sure many of us have witnessed that. I certainly have, especially in the Indigenous communities I've worked in. And I would say that it takes communities including individuals, communities of faith, corporations, etc., to raise First United in its new building, and to continue and expand the services that we're providing. So with that, a huge thank you to everybody. And I want to express also big thanks to our staff, to our leadership team, whom I hope will, and Amanda, that you will pass on these thanks to all the staff, that we can't do it without them. Their commitment, the generosity, the caring of everybody at First is just outstanding. And I couldn't be more proud to be part of the organization. So I'll leave it at that. I probably went over time, and I'll pass it back to Katie, I guess, who will instruct for what's next.
Thank you so much, Heather. What a really lovely overview. And I mean, you know, as a staff member, it's always very nice to hear the thanks and the recognition from the board. And of course, our big thanks to the board too for being amazing partners in this work. And now I will kick it over to our executive director, Amanda Burrows, and she's going to take us through some of the specifics of our programs and services and what happened last year, some of what Heather touched on. So over to you, Amanda.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So nice to see everybody. So we're talking about last fiscal year, which was October 1st, 2022 to September 30th of 2023. And really, like Heather mentioned, dignity, belonging, and justice, these three words behind me, they really are more than just three words. You can see them at our construction site, on the hoarding, in the newspaper, on ads, but they really truly guide us in our work to achieve a vision where we can be a neighborhood where everybody's worth is celebrated and all people thrive. And so I just want to ground us in this as I move forward over the next, I'll make it so we're out of here by 5:15 and still have some space for questions. So dignity, what do we mean when we say dignity? Here it says, we believe that everyone has equal value and deserves to be treated with dignity. And how this looks is that people's basic needs align with their human rights, access to shelter, water, sanitation. When we say belonging, what it says, we create and facilitate a space where all are welcome and can feel a sense of belonging. How does this look? This is about alleviating social isolation. This is about providing spaces to gather, spaces to heal, spaces for ceremony, and spaces for worship. When we say justice, we continue to fight for justice to break the cycles of oppression. How does this look? This is about system change. This is anywhere from breaking stigma to changing legislation, challenging policies for a more equitable society. And how dignity, belonging, and justice show up in our organization is in our programs and our services. Oh my goodness, our meals. So I'm going to talk a lot about how we doubled volume, and it doesn't necessarily mean more is better, but wow, we did see an influx of need and we were there to respond. Over 130,000 meals and snacks served between the food truck and our shelter. And although I am speaking of last fiscal year, I just, I want to also pepper in some real-time examples. We just had our Easter meal that was just almost 300 folks served. The Canadian Memorial United Church, I don't know if anyone from that community of faith is here, helped us out and was a very special day. Our shelter, you can see stats there, but something that we talk about in our annual report is that 18 residents from our shelter were permanently housed in safe and secure and affordable, of course, housing, because we have staff, we have case planners, we have partnerships to do that work. We truly are a low barrier. We keep couples together. We have pets. It really is about a sense of belonging. And I want to share a real-time story. I do a lot of advocacy and encampments. And when I was in Oppenheimer over the last couple of months, what became, it's heartbreaking to witness what was happening with the city, but it was also heartening to hear our reputation of First United, of how many people wanted to be housed in our shelter that is constantly at capacity. We were able to house 2 folks in our shelter, though, building some relationships. But it just really goes to show how important it is for purpose-built spaces. The space we built in our shelter was meant to be a shelter, and how much of our reputation, clean, secure, and the staff, how much it was felt beyond in the whole community. And so that was an amazing opportunity to hear that. Our taxes. You can see over 3,000 taxes were filed, doubling the amount of last year. That is over 600K put back into low-income folks' pockets. We attribute the increase to the cases from people knowing where we are in our transition place of 501, but also doing more concentrated outreach. All of you, my other namesake, Amanda, in this organization for over 10 years, has done a tremendous job of also going to where other people are in social housing and filing taxes. A real-time example is the last week in this March, the tax program filed more taxes that 1 week than the whole month of March last year, which was also double from the year before. So we're really hoping to continue to meet those needs. Legal advocacy, 1,400 cases complete. I think you might know majority of cases are tenancy related. Other ranges of issues are around advocating for folks' social benefits. Real-time example, Brandeis, an SRO, a single room occupancy hotel in community, has had some illegal evictions. She calls herself a slumlord, so I'll use that term, telling people they need to leave to renovate. It's so beyond illegal, and just we are called and we're mobilizing in that whole building to be able to intervene on that illegal and I think inhumane behavior. Help desk, 5,000 pairs of socks. Anyway, keeps going. And our mail and phone program, I know you're aware we have several hundred people use this as their address. And then that program keeps expanding. We have a phone in the front lobby of 501 East Hastings, which is our temporary community desk, which also the taxes are administered out of. And more people are aware of the program there and coming to us. Real-time example, we just relaunched our ID clinic. Really important need. Other places that were doing that were beyond capacity and waits were getting long. So we had the potential to do it again. We soft launched it, and our very first client was a mom and her baby replacing her birth certificate. She was out in the cold. You can't even make this up. It was in the cold. Someone saw her waiting in this lineup because it was so busy and said First United just launched an ID clinic, and she just walked over to us and we were able to facilitate that right away. Always, of course, feels good to be able to respond to needs. And our spiritual care. What I love so much, Lauren, who is doing our land acknowledgement, our Indigenous spiritual chaplain, has been spending more time in our shelter, and she's been rolling out therapeutic art, which is being so well received. And one of my real-time examples, she's doing this Lenten series of pouring out grief, and this really amazing way to create this art. And I tested it out. It is so meditative. It is so calming. It is so fun. And when I was walking from our spiritual care office, Cross Oppenheimer, to our Powell Street office, somebody stopped me and said, "Are you doing art with Lauren?" And then they disclosed they live in our First United shelter, not an artist, but are thoroughly enjoying doing this work, which again was a beautiful example to hear. And when it comes to our system change, yes, we became more intentional with this work and launched our BC eviction map, first of its kind. The project and the way that we were able to collect data really informed our next steps with law reform. So I want to continue talking about system change and our public advocacy. I mean, why do we focus on it? We truly believe that systemic change is necessary to end the injustices like the criminalization of poverty, homelessness, and overdose deaths. And this year we continue to bring these issues to the forefront. I mean, we were educating and raising awareness through various forms of media and organizing petitions for the first time, the way we were doing letter writing campaigns to encourage public support. And we continue to meet the pressing needs of the community, but know that we must inspire collective action to see this systemic change. And have you seen our media coverage last year and into this year? I mean, from the tremendous amounts of press coverage for our eviction mapping, I mean, we were so overwhelmed last summer trying to keep up with the media requests, to our multiple op-eds in the Vancouver Sun regarding affordability. We also talked about air conditioning and the rights for tenants to be able to put in an air conditioner. And we even did an op-ed commenting on civic democracy and the need to call truth to power, which has been still, this is almost exactly a year later, we still get comments on our courage and bravery for speaking out against some city council for making very harmful remarks about basically, you know, freedom of speech, if you will. And then what else are we doing? Well, we're still in the news. If you're following, we're advocating for encampments. We were around for extreme weather. We discussed the overdose crisis, and even of late, talking about the need for public Wi-Fi in the downtown east side. As Heather mentioned, it's beautiful to constantly be talking about this, reconciliation and action. You know, we continue our commitment to putting reconciliation in action. And last year, you know, paying attention to the ways that we could do this, very specific, tangible actions to listen and amplify the voices and causes of Indigenous communities. We hired an Indigenous outreach coordinator named Avery, she's there on the screen, who joined our systems change team to work on projects related to racial justice and the decolonial housing justice project. For our Lenten series last year, if you recall, Spiritual Care launched a truth-telling themed calendar to work towards fulfilling call to action number 60 from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. The call asked church leaders to collaborate with Indigenous spiritual leaders, survivors, and others to develop and teach a curriculum on, and I quote, the history and legacy of religious conflict in Aboriginal families and communities, and the responsibilities that churches have to mitigate such conflicts and prevent spiritual violence. Whew. So redevelopment, Heather touched on this. What a year it's been for our redevelopment. And I wonder who has gone by lately. Maybe pop in the chat if you've seen it lately. There's rebar. I mean, it's happening. It's hard to believe that our redevelopment has been, I guess, a journey. And this iteration started about 6 years ago. It's been long, exciting, challenging at times. That asbestos. But finally, at the end of the fiscal year, we reached a pivotal redevelopment milestone, the groundbreaking, which was followed by excavation and shoring work. What Heather was touching on happened in November, which you're going to see photos of in the next year's annual report. But it was really powerful, just to echo what Heather said. We gathered on the site with Shane Elder Point to bless the ground, bury a copper plate, poignant reflection and ceremony. And a powerful moment indeed. So as for fundraising for First Forward, by September 30th, 2023, the end of our fiscal, we've secured $27.4 million for the capital campaign that we lovingly call First Forward, on a goal of $37 million. And I just want to take an opportunity to thank the First Forward cabinet. I know a couple of you are here, Heather, Dawn, Mark, was anyone else here? Rudy. Communities of faith, our businesses, some individuals, and our board who have supported First Forward into our second year. And I'll turn it over to Katie to continue discussing financials in our operations.
Thank you, Amanda. So these are an overview of our financials for our operating budget. So this is just programs and services, not First Forward. And each year we're growing as an organization, not only in terms of our reach and our impact, but also in terms of our resourcing. And so as you can see from the figures here, we finished our fiscal year in a very strong financial position, and we had a surplus of about $31,000. So this is a really good position to be in. We feel very, very good about it. Every year we're growing and meeting those increased demands. About $2 million of that revenue there under government is attributed to BC Housing for the Shelter. So about $2.4 million was raised from, generous folks like you, from funders, from communities of faith, from corporate partners who all wanted to support the work that we do in the community of providing dignity, belonging, and justice. I won't go too deep into the details of the financials, but we are hosting our AGM after this, where the financial statements will be presented. So if you're curious about that and have questions or want to engage in it more, please stay around for the AGM and you can dig into it there. But what I'm really most excited about, for me, my favorite part of all this, is where we get to thank you folks. Since I started at First United in 2020, I've been completely blown away year over year by the unwavering commitment that our donors and supporters show up for us year after year. It's really a true, meaningful, deep belief that you folks have in us, in the community, and what we're doing together. Over 2,000 individuals, so individual folks like me and you, donated gifts ranging from $5 to over $100,000. They contributed over $1.6 million, and I know the vast majority of folks here in this room tonight are individual donors. So I just want to say thank you so tremendously much for all that you help us do and carry out every year. Over 390 frontline monthly donors contributing nearly $200,000. The monthly donors, they're there with us. You're there with us month after month, making sure that we can keep going. We don't have to worry about cash flow in that way. And then, of course, our friends of first. So these are folks who chose to leave us in their will to make a gift to First United in their will as part of their legacy past their lifetimes. And we had 2 new friends of first join us last year. I truly can't thank you enough to every single person, organization, community of faith who joined us in the past year and continues to now. We're in the middle of our Easter fundraising campaign. I'm sure you guys have seen some of our letters or emails, and I just really, truly want to say First United wouldn't be the organization that it is today without your help. You really, truly make our work possible, and we're just incredibly grateful. And I'll kick it back to Amanda to go through what some of that impact looks like.
Oh yeah, just to end on this, and we'll have time for a couple of questions. So look at these photos. So I know we're focusing on last year, but impact is about how we're propelling into the future and what we're doing now. And these are some very recent photos and recent moments we've had. That first photo, if you remember the extreme weather, the snow in January, I mean, that was prior to that, you'll remember probably the Arctic weather. And what we knew was apparent very quickly is that there wasn't a lot of outreach happening. So staff, we decided to start doing some more outreach that we hadn't been typically doing before to respond to the need. We also have, as we keep saying and thanking you folks, an amazing, stunning community of support that we really called upon and you answered. We have such a large reach where so many grassroots groups don't. And so we were able to centralize and do call outs for items to disperse. So we dispersed to encampments along the street, our own shelter, of course, our own 501 community help desk, but we also went to those sort of pop-up warming centers that different government agencies had arranged, but there wasn't enough resources getting towards them. It was an astonishing moment of reflection, of disorganization, and we were so pleased to have that learning and to get into the middle of it and be able to learn all this stuff. And we couldn't have done it without our supporters. It was overwhelming and humbling, and the amount of generosity and the amount of clothes that we were able to give away and keep people warm and literally save lives was incredible. That other picture is of Katie and Kristen in programs, smiling there. So the food truck might be a nice little show pony, but she doesn't really work well in the snow. So she was stuck. So we decided to order pizza. It's really important to be consistent in community. So we still serve food. It just was with Domino's. And then this last picture, I'm going to leave it here. This is Walter, Gary, and Susie. They're community members. That's all I'll say about them. But you'll notice this tent. It's our tent, of course, that says dignity, justice, and belonging. And what's so poignant about this moment, you can see behind them, there's these gates up. So that field house in Oppenheimer Park is typically open. That day it was closed, it was pouring rain, and the city wouldn't allow community members to pop up their own tents because it's against the bylaw. It was, I'm going to be frank, very outrageous to experience and witness that. So we just went and brought ours and gifted it to community where it still is every day. And people take pictures and post below. And the blossoms are blossoming now in Oppenheimer, as you're probably aware. It's a beautiful place to look at the cherry blossoms. And so underscoring when it comes to belonging, let's end it with community. The community who lives here belongs here. They always have and they always will, and they should always be part of our conversations moving forward with how we plan this community and this neighborhood, and certainly in our organization. So with that, thank you so much. And I'll leave it to Katie to facilitate a couple questions. Thanks.
All right. No, that's a whirlwind of information there. We threw a lot at you. I guess what I'm curious about is, did anything surprise you? I know I often talk to donors and they have some kind of understanding of what we do. They'll know about our meal program or our shelter, but typically don't have an idea of the breadth. And so are you surprised by anything that we went over today? And feel free to just chime in, unmute yourself, or you can pop something in the chat box if you're not wanting to speak up.
No surprises? I'm really shocked because I'm surprised every time I hear these statistics, especially, and the variety of activities that we don't know that are happening behind the scenes.
Oh, I see a hand, Peter.
Thank you very much. I think I heard Amanda say that 18 people who were in the shelter had made transition to permanent housing, and I was just wondering what was the secret to success there, and what percentage does that represent of the total shelter beds? Thank you.
Hi, Peter. I can answer this one. We have 51 beds per night, and our residents stay anywhere for a few nights to several months. What often happens, so whatever, who's a mathematician on this call? It's 18.
18, okay, I'll figure
Yeah.
that out.
I think you are, Peter. But because it is a high statistic in a very low barrier shelter, I would attribute it to a couple things: our staff and case planners, and also the advocacy we do when we have relationships with VCH Coastal. Like there are nurse practitioners that come connect and really start to know the residents. And when they want to, it's part of agency as well, when they're ready and when there's housing available, there is also advocacy that needs to happen, that human exchange between people to get housing. So I attribute it to the longevity of the staff, knowing the system is helpful. And again, clients being ready. Bring it on, folks. You can ask me anything. Oh, Jacob, you have a question in chat. How can we tell Jacob, our board member? Hi. How do we tell the wider public about our successes and ambitions? Through the media, through Facebook, through convening like this, through attendance, through asking our people to be able to amplify our messages. I think through a priority of ours is through engagement. That's engaging the government, communities of faith, our volunteers, our donors, our community members, our service providers. So we're constantly out there amplifying our work, talking about our work. And this isn't about an ego, about building an empire. It's about expanding impact. And we know that it would take our communities to do it. And then through the typical channels of social media, good old fashioned pounding the pavement, letter writing campaigns, mobilizing. But we know that our increases in social media and the statistics, we're getting more hits. Our press has been overwhelming. I'm going to spoiler alert if you're following us. We were in the throne speech. I mean, I don't know what other success metric you can about our work with landlord use evictions that was then in the Vancouver Sun attributed to First United's work in this space. So I take that as we'll talk about that more next year at this time, though.
Clarke, it looked like you had a question. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, first of all, the report. I like the report. I like the style of the report. I like the way that information is highlighted. But the surprise for me is the tax returns. That is hugely significant. You know, when you look at the number of people and the amount of money returned. Boy, I mean, so hats off for that program and to whoever is organizing that work. So my compliments.
We'll definitely pass it along to Amanda Pellerin, our tax clinic coordinator. She is deep in the throes of it right now, incredibly busy, and we're getting calls constantly of folks trying to get in. And so well wishes and congratulations from folks I know do mean a lot to her, and we'll definitely be sure to pass that along. We've probably got time for about one more question or comment, thought.
John Robertson, that seems fitting. No offense, everyone. John, your mic is off.
You're muted. You're muted, Don.
Yeah, I say the annual report that came out is incredible. So clear, concise, and so clear in telling the story. what we're hearing today is very exciting. And everybody that is working at First United Church is to be congratulated. I'm just also wondering what your assessment is of the downtown east side generally. Is the poverty increasing in the community? Are people falling more into the reservoir of the downtown east side? What's happening there?
Yeah, poverty is increasing. The basic statistic from the latest point, what's called a point in time, PIT homeless count, has increased across Metro Vancouver 34%, and in the 20s here in Vancouver. And of course, we see in the downtown east side that. What's so apparent just visually is what's happening with encampments, that no one has anywhere to go or to live, and so they're setting up a tent and they're being shooed away, and we're getting back to like hiding, trying to hide homelessness. I'm going to be very, I don't think bold, but I'll be blunt. There is a war on poverty and a war on drugs that is happening, that we're witnessing to a whole other degree in the downtown east side. It's going to take a lot of work and advocacy to break the stigma that is required to then move forward with prioritizing the resources to solve these problems. And it's going to come with breaking stigma. And back to Jacob's question about engaging folks, it starts with you in this room and advocating to try and ensure that people's basic rights and human rights are met, and to ensure that policy shifts like safe supply are implemented to save lives, and to advocate for social housing and bringing back federal housing programs. And this is across Canada and across the United States.
Thank you.
Standing. Look at
that. I'll give a hopeful moment as we're winding down. We're working on it, and we have a lot of hope and a lot of wins and a lot of stories and a lot of well wishes and a lot of people mobilizing and collaborating more than I've ever witnessed in this community. So maybe I'll say that before. I want to just say some quick thank you, because there are a lot of board members on this call. I of course, Heather, I saw Brian, Elizabeth, Jacob, I believe I saw Lauren. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to a lot of our staff came as well. Katie, Natalie, and Raw from leadership, I saw you. Then there was Mari, Will, Trista, Amber, and Stacy. Fantastic. And then also Martha, our project lead for redevelopment. One of our favorite consultants has also joined us today. So thank you. I'll turn it back to Katie to wind us up. We'll send you on your way.
Look at that. Excellent timing. Thank you so much for being here, folks. We really do enjoy getting these opportunities to chat with you, to give you updates, to hear some of your questions. Like I said earlier, so our AGM starts at 5:30, I believe. We've just popped a link for it in the chat, but it should also be in the confirmation email that you received as a reminder today. And just before we let you go, we do a draw for a Terra Bread's gift card every time at one of these. And I'm very pleased to announce that Iris Ting has won the gift card this time. Congratulations, Iris. Oh, I love the clapping. I can't see you on my screen here, but we'll be in touch via email with you to coordinate sending that out to you. And for everybody else, have an excellent evening. Thank you so much again for making our last fiscal year so fantastic. And we hope to see some of you over at the AGM. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.